All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Victoria Bray. I'm the Associate Director of Enrollment and Recruitment at Brown Master's Programs. So I've got a ton of information to share with you about the application process for the fifth year program, what the fifth year program is all about. So I think we can go ahead and get started. We're going to use the Q&A feature on your Zoom toolbar to collect questions. That just makes it a little bit easier for me to organize everything. This sessions really sort of generally about the fifth year program. We have a lot of program specific information sessions that are scheduled throughout the fall and the spring to help prepare you for applying to specific programs. So I'm happy to share that information with you after the session to make sure that you can register for those. But this is really about the nuts and bolts of the fifth year program, available programs, things to consider when you're considering a master's program or continuing with your master's program at Brown, and then the application process. So really your questions drive the conversation. So make sure you're submitting those throughout and then again at the end. So let's talk more about the program. So the fifth year program allows you to stay for an additional year after your undergraduate degree to get a master's at Brown. So two of the courses that you take as an undergrad can satisfy the requirements towards your master's degree. You have to be able to apply at least one course to be considered a fifth year applicant. That's really important to keep in mind. Otherwise, you have to take the full course sequence. You don't get the benefit of applying two of your undergraduate courses to your master's degree. These two courses that you apply to your master's degree program will be at the discretion of your department. You'll hear me say this a lot throughout the session. It's really important that you're in contact with the program as you're applying to make sure that you have courses from your undergraduate degree that you can apply into your graduate degree so you can stay for that additional year. You can defer your enrollment too. So we get a lot of questions from students who are interested in the fifth year program, but they're not really sure what they want to do after they graduate. They might want to go into industry for a little while. One of the benefits of applying as a fifth year student is that you can defer twice. So you can defer for 1 year, two times for a maximum of a 2 year deferral. So if you're thinking you want to consider industry, employment, other graduate programs alongside this opportunity, that's a really good benefit. You can apply, you can defer your enrollment for a year, you can make a plan over the course of that year, and you can come later. Or, of course, you don't have to. You can just enroll in the program and stay for that fifth year. So it's a great way for you to get a degree that takes most folks 2 years. Most of our master's programs have a 2 year course sequence that you have to take in order to graduate. But for Brown undergraduate students, because you can apply those two courses, you're able to complete in 1 year. Another benefit of staying at Brown is you might see the landscape of fifth year or of master's programs that we offer at Brown and think, that we don't have certain programs. For Brown undergraduate students, we allow you to stay for programs that we don't offer to external constituencies. So there's a bunch of master's programs that you have the opportunity to apply to and take courses with in different departments than folks who are applying externally. You can find a comprehensive list of our programs on the fifth year webpage, which I'll also share with you after the session. A note is if you're applying to a degree program that is usually an SCM program, you might see that the fifth year version is an AM program, a Master of Arts versus a Master of Science. And that's because of the sort of constrained time. So you might be looking for, let's say, a Master of Science in biostatistics. You might only see the Master of Arts. So just keep that in mind as you're navigating the application process, but it's a great benefit because you get the two courses off, but you can still, take programs that we might not necessarily offer to external folks. Some important things to keep in mind we get asked quite a bit about in the Division of Masters and Professional Programs. Your undergraduate financial aid package does not roll over. So if you have any scholarships, need-based financial aid, anything like that that you're receiving either from Brown or from folks outside of Brown funding education, that will not roll over to your master's program necessarily. Most of our master's students are self-funded. Some of our programs have program-specific scholarships that they offer to both fifth-year students and external applicants. That funding is limited. This is another reason why it's really important for you to be in contact with your program as you're navigating this application process so you can get the full idea of what the landscape of funding looks like for you as well. On the fifth year website that I mentioned earlier, you can click through each of the programs to see more details about things like the curriculum funding, important details like that. So definitely look at the program's website, contact the GGS program to be able to get an understanding not just of what courses you should be taking in order to apply those to your master's degree, but also what that landscape of funding looks like I said. Another thing that is different than you might have experienced when you were applying to an undergraduate program, the application timeline and process might look a little bit different than it does for other folks. We give Brown University undergraduate students more time to apply. So we might have a deadline of February 1st for external candidates. That deadline might be May 1st for Brown undergraduate students, depending on when the cohort intake is. And I have more details about that on another slide, but it's just another reason why it's really important to keep track of all of the deadlines for all of the programs you're applying to. Very different from applying to an undergraduate program. There isn't necessarily a common set of deadlines across universities. There's not even a common set of deadlines necessarily across Brown University's master's programs. So make sure you're keeping in close contact with us, checking your email, making sure that you're meeting those deadlines, those requirements, and all of that good stuff. Because, like I said earlier, there's a lot of different things that are available to you that might be divergent from what you're seeing that's being offered to an external candidate coming from another university. Another thing to keep in mind, you are not necessarily restricted to whatever your undergraduate concentration is for your master's degree program. So if you're an undergraduate concentrator in computer science, you don't necessarily only have access to the computer science fifth year master's program. Some of our programs are going to be more restrictive in the courses that they'll accept and the backgrounds that they'll accept, because we want to make sure that you're successful in the master's program academically, right? So another reason why, again, I'll say this multiple times over the course of the session, really important to be in contact with the program where you're interested in applying to, because they can give you a sense of, you do need to have this particular quantitative background in order to be considered for the program. You might have some coursework, but not quite enough. And that can also help you plan for the courses that you're going to take in your senior year if we have folks who are with us who aren't current seniors. But even now, you can plan for the courses that you're taking in the spring. So great to start early, especially if we have anyone who's not yet a senior even. You can start this process even earlier and make sure you're planning your courses in such a way that you're the most competitive applicant to the fifth year program possible. Finally, visas. If you're currently on a student visa for your undergraduate degree, you'll need to work with us to renew that visa. You'll work with the School of Professional Studies and OISSS through that process, but you'll need to do that paperwork, of course. So now let's talk about the application process. So like I said earlier, application requirements look a little bit different for Brown University students than for external applicants. An important note about the fifth year program, you have to be a current Brown undergraduate student in order to be considered for a fifth year master's program. So if you graduate in May, and in, September, you say, I want to do a master's program. Brown offers this fifth year program. I'm going to go back and do that. That's not going to be an option for you. You have to apply in your undergraduate degree program to be able to be considered. So, like I said earlier, deferring is an option, but you have to be a current Brown undergraduate student at the time that you apply in order to be considered for the program. If you're not sure what you need to submit, you can always check in with us to get a hand and an understanding in what specific items you might need to submit for your application requirement. We have sort of a common set of requirements that you can see on the screen in front of you, transcripts, a personal statement, short answer questions depending on the program, resume, CV, and then 2 letters of recommendation. Generally, we require 3 letters of recommendation, but for current Brown students, we waive one of those letters of rec, so you only need to submit 2. You'll also need to be able to indicate the course numbers of the courses you plan to use towards your master's degree program. If the GRE is required for your program, we are not going to require that for you as a Brown University student, so that's another great benefit. And then, of course, we're also not going to charge you an application fee, so we can save you a little bit of money there. Right, so I said earlier, we have a couple of different intakes. We have summer start programs, fall start programs. Some of our programs also sort of case by case have a spring intake. So if folks are graduating off cycle in December, there might be some flexibility in order for you to enter in the spring, depending on what program you're interested in. The application deadline, generally speaking, for programs starting in the summer is going to be January 15th. But again, that might vary by program. So a good example of that is the Prime program, Innovation Management and Entrepreneurship. The program starts online in the summer, so you have a little bit of additional time. And then we have the vast majority of our master's students starting in the fall. Again, there are some of these that will also take spring starts, but the vast majority of all of our master's students are starting in the fall. You can see a list of programs here. Some of the application deadlines might be different depending on the program, but this is sort of a good overview of when those application deadlines are for the fall start programs. Again, I'll provide a link to the fifth year page so that you can get more details on this. So, important application timeline, next steps. Again, start early. Definitely, if you're interested in the program, this is a great first step to get an understanding of sort of what the landscape of the fifth year program looks like. The next step would be checking in with your program. Actually, the best next step is come to our fifth year fair. You should have gotten an email about the fifth year fair that we're offering in November. A good portion of the programs offering fifth year master's degrees are going to be represented there. So you can actually walk around, come and see each of the programs that you're interested in, and get more details that way. And another, if you're a current senior, you're going to want to start the application. Make sure that you're applying as a fifth year. Don't apply as an external student. We want to make sure that you get tagged as a current Brown undergraduate student. So under Brown community status, make sure that you're listing that you're a current senior, have your banner ID ready, and then you'll be able to also input the course numbers for the courses that you want to apply to that program. Anybody interested in School of Public Health programs will apply through Sophus Express. Sophus is sort of a common application for public health colleges and universities. So they host that application and you'll apply through Sophus Express. For the MPH program, it's also you'll apply in your junior year for the MPH program as a fifth year. So keep that in mind as well. Gather your materials. You can find requirements for individual programs on our program finder pages. Start early, especially with those letters of recommendation. We talk about this a lot in program specific information sessions, but you want to make sure that when you're requesting letters of recommendation, you're requesting them in advance so that they have your resume, your personal statement, really all of the details they need to be able to share with us why they think that you'll be a successful master's student in their particular program. And then make sure that you're submitting your application by the deadline. Some things might come after the deadline. You have up until 2 weeks after the application deadline to complete your application, but you need to submit your application by the deadline in order to be considered. And we can only consider complete applications for admission. So if you're missing a letter of recommendation or you're missing a required item, we won't be able to release a decision. We won't be able to review your application. So that's also very important to keep in mind. So I see we already have some questions in here. I want to start going into the Q&A and answering those. Great question. Is there a different application portal for fifth year students? No, it's the same application portal. Either way, you need to indicate in the application that you are a current Brown undergraduate student, and then you'll have access to the full list of programs that we offer. Can I apply as a junior or do I have to wait until I'm a senior? We have two programs that you can apply to as a junior, the BACMAT program, which is the Master of Arts in Teaching, as well as the UGMPH program. Otherwise, you have to apply in your senior year. So Master of Arts in Teaching also has a fifth year option that you would apply for in your senior year, but the public health does not. So you would have to apply in your junior year to be a part of the UGMPH program. Can you apply to more than one program? Yes, you can apply to more than one program. We let you apply to a maximum of three, though, so just keep that in mind as well. Another question clarifying eligibility for the master's program in terms of how many courses need to be applied. You need to have at least one course that will be eligible to be applied to your master's program. What that course is up to you and the program. The program that you're applying to dictates what they would accept as a course to be satisfy one of their requirements. So you'd want to check in with the program to make sure that the courses that you're taking, at least one of them can be applicable to that specific master's degree program. You can't just take any, course, whether it be undergraduate or graduate level, and apply that. It has to be specific to the program as they deem it. So there's a question from somebody who already deferred their admission to the program. I'm going to have you reach out to us directly with that question because I'm not quite sure I understand, but that's totally fine. I'm just going to pop my email address in here. You can reach out to me directly. In terms of a timeline, what would you recommend for a current senior interested in a fifth year master's? Great question. I think timeline wise, you're doing exactly what you need to be doing right now. This is the first information session that we've had. So great to get an understanding of what the fifth year program is in general. Come to the fifth year fair in November. I would start soliciting letters of recommendation, things like that now. And then that way you're ready to go depending on what type of program you're applying to. If you're applying to a fall start program, generally speaking, you have a lot of time, but I think it's good to get ahead of it. Make sure that you're having those conversations with the program now so that you can plan your spring course schedule to position yourself to be as competitive of an applicant as possible. And then that will give you also plenty of time for you to be able to get those letters of recommendation so that because you know that you'll be eligible for the program. Um, so there's another question about like specifically what courses are eligible. We don't have a list for each program of which courses are eligible, as great as that would be. So each student is sort of treated case by case in terms of which courses will be eligible. So what I can do is I can give you a contact in the Prime, this is specifically about the Prime program. I can give you their email address and you can reach out to them. Feel free to CC me as well if you have any questions. So I'm going to put my email address in the chat. Let's stop sharing my screen. You can feel free to email me with any questions. I work directly with almost all of the master's programs, so I can help connect you with folks across Brown that you might be interested in talking to. And then I want to make sure everybody has the fifth year master's website URL as well. So I'm going to drop that in the chat too, so you can get a better understanding of dates, deadlines, and what might be required of you to apply to the program. So that's it in terms of questions in the Q&A. Again, if anybody has any after the fact, you are more than welcome to reach out to me directly. I would definitely recommend coming to an upcoming information session. So I also will add the link to our calendar to be able to register for those. So this link will bring you to our event landing page. We have an event series called Belong at Brown, where we talk to folks across Brown University and the way that their work intersects with our master's students. But then if you scroll down to the button at the bottom, you'll see program-specific events. If you click through there, you'll see the full list of information sessions that we are offering currently. Check back frequently, check your inbox. We'll email anytime there are additional events added to those, but this is what we have as of right now, and we would be happy to see all of you at any of our program-specific information sessions. Ooh, here's a good question. Can you explain the process for letters of recommendation? What kind of information do they need to know about your fifth year master's application process to submit a sufficient letter? Nothing that they need necessarily needed to know specifically about the fifth year program. I think it's more important that they know details about you, your academic history, your goals, anything that you're interested in, your background that might be applicable to the program. Um, Someone who can speak to how successful you'll be in a master's program at Brown as well. Uh, the things that you can provide to that end would be your resume, your personal statement. You can meet with your, especially if your recommenders are at Brown, you can meet with them and talk to them about your letter of recommendation. But that is what I would do. And then, of course, I would let them know I'm applying specifically to the data science fifth year program, and then potentially get them a link to our program finder page so that they can get a sense of the sort of ethos of the program so they can speak to your academic fit. That is what I would provide to recommenders to be able to get a better idea of how they can position their letter in a way that puts you in the most positive light possible. For letters of recommendation, I would also encourage you to request letters from folks who can speak to you specifically. Somebody who submits a letter saying, this person got in the 10% of course or grades in my course. That's not going to be as impactful as somebody who can speak to you, this person works really effectively in groups. Here's a specific example of, a project that they did in my class that was great and this is why. That's going to be a much more impactful letter of recommendation than just, this person got an A in my class, so I recommend them. Any other questions? Is it program specific who can be a recommender? Is it faculty only? You only have two letters of recommendation that you'll submit for the fifth year program. I'd encourage you to submit them from faculties, from professors. There might be some room, depending on the program, to submit a professional letter of recommendation, but for current Brown undergraduate students, I think a letter from folks who've taught you in the classroom or advised you academically or something. I also host office hours. So if anybody has additional questions, you're always more than welcome to come to my office hours. I will, uh, we're going to be sending out an email after this with the recording so folks can hearken back to what we've talked about today. But then also you'll get a notice about registering for my office hours as well if you have any questions. All right. Well, that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Again, if you have any questions, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. I'm more than happy to help with anything you might need. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy what I think is pretty good weather in Providence right now.